As we think about job costing, remember the direct materials is going to come from some sort of materials requisition slip where we request for materials to make our product. Now, direct labor is going to come from time tickets, and those time tickets are going to tell us exactly how much labor was used. And if we know that by hours, we're going to take that times some hourly rate to get the total direct labor cost for our jobs. Remember, those go directly into WIP. Now, anything indirect, remember, are going to show up in manufacturing overhead. So whether that be indirect materials, indirect labor, things like depreciation or electricity or utilities or insurance. And so now our job is to figure out how are we going to allocate all of our overhead cost for the year to all of the jobs. So we start with an estimate. And this really goes through a two-part process. So we're going to use these examples to help us. So here on number one, we've got Oriole Company, and they estimate that their total annual manufacturing overhead costs are going to be $760,000 for the year. So the question we're really trying to answer is, if we have 20 different jobs or even 10 different processes, how do we allocate that in a systematic way that makes sense? We know we're not going to be spot on, but how can we do that? So step one, when we compute this thing called the predetermined overhead rate. Now we're going to do this three different ways with three different activity bases. Now keep in mind, this is all under the traditional costing method. And so for job costing, it's direct labor focused. So we can either allocate overhead costs based on direct labor cost or direct labor hours. Now machine hours is more of a process cost, but I just want us to make sure we get some practice here. Okay, so the first step is really just computing the predetermined overhead rate. Then we're going to apply it in the next video. So to compute the predetermined overhead rate for the activity basis, we are going to use estimated manufacturing overhead as the starting point for all of our allocation rates. So 760,000, 760,000, 760,000. Okay, doesn't change. These are just different drivers of cost. So we're just going through the process of practicing. Now, the estimated, again, that's key, estimated annual operating activity basis of direct labor cost are 400,000. So to find the predetermined overhead rate for direct labor cost, we're going to take that estimated overhead divided by the estimated labor cost. Now, in this case, if we take 760 divided by 400, we get 1.9. Well, what that means is really we're saying that for these jobs, if we used this driver, that would represent manufacturing overhead to be applied at a rate of 190% of our direct labor cost. Calculating it per direct labor hour divided by direct labor hours of 40,000. So if I take my 760 divided by 40,000, I get 19. Now this is $19 per direct labor hour. So if I had 20 direct labor hours in my job, I would take that times 19. Cost is a little bit different. You're not looking at the hours, you're instead looking at the cost. So you'd have to know what your total direct labor cost was and then take that times 1.9 or 190%. And then finally, machine hour, very similar to direct labor hours. Take that divided by the estimated machine hours of 100,000. And we should get 7.6. So that's $7.60 per machine hour. So if we had a job that used 100 machine hours, we'd take that times 7.6. And that's how we do traditional costing. So take a moment and work ahead on some of these problems. And in the next video, I'll work those solutions.